Hey everybody, I'm Milton Davis and welcome to 11 Questions Special Edition. Today we are going to be talking to author and Dr. Glenn Parris. Hey Glenn, how you doing?
Hey Milton, it's great to see you.
Hey, thanks for coming, man, and talking to us today. This is something I've been wanting to do for a long time. I get a chance to sit down and talk with you because you've got some great stuff that you've been doing. I like to say you're another one of those authors that people don't know about, but probably should know about, and they will learn about today. And you're also one of the veterans of the industry that has kind of been out there doing this a lot longer than most of us, really, to be honest. So give us a little background about you and your writing and really what brought you to doing science fiction and fantasy.
Well, it actually does go back quite a ways. The early 1990s, I started writing science fiction in a little bit of a lull in my medical career. When I say lull, there's not a lot easy about medicine, but I had a few months where things were very easy, and I actually had some extra time on my hands. And I couldn't divert myself with the usual things like going out to the movies, going out on dates. Well, I was married at the time, so I only went out on no dates.
Yeah, that would have been too good.
Yeah, no. But I also couldn't get into the library at the hospital. And if you didn't bring your own reading material, basically you were counting the dots on the ceiling. So I had just a little old yellow pad and a pencil, and I started, making notes and, about different stories and such. One I developed, one of them I didn't. But the one that I developed had to do with, the return of the dinosaurs. I was watching and I talk about this all the time. I was watching a documentary about dinosaurs, and towards the end of the documentary, one of the paleontologists made the comment that everything that we know about dinosaurs is based on 3% of the fossil record. Well, 3% of the fossil record statistically is very little. We don't know anything about them at all. What if they didn't die out? What if they just left? And that was the crystal, that was the kernel of Dragon's Heir. Back in those days, I titled it Eminent Domain, and I was using a pseudonym. And the pseudonym was J. Cameron Time. All right. And that novel debuted June 1996. And we were at Dragon Con. We did very well. We sold about 250 copies that weekend. And back then, Dragon Con wasn't Labor Day, it was in June.
No.
I got approached by a number of people. Media Play came to me and asked me if I wanted to, sell the books in the Media Play stores. They did that. I couldn't get to Barnes and Nobles, but Borders bookstores, invited me in. And Atlanta Radio Theater Company asked me to if they could do an adaptation. I didn't know who the heck they were at the time, so I kind of scratched my head and I said, "Yeah, I'll call you," and didn't, which was probably one of my biggest mistakes. They could have done tremendous things for me, but you don't know what you don't know. So I went to Dragon Con. I went to World Science Fiction Convention, Gen Con, and something called TachyCon in Florida. And they meant well with that name, but it didn't catch on.
So it was maybe probably too tacky, maybe like that.
Yeah, I mean, the jokes just wrote themselves. But it was a good early convention. And we were getting a lot of play then. Well, the following year, I again sold a few things, but it got to be very difficult for me to do that and my job. I had a new medical practice. I had two new babies. They were like a couple years old at that point, but they were young, and I needed to be there. So I kind of had a hiatus from writing science fiction because I couldn't come up with any ideas anyway for about 15 years. And then I rediscovered writing, went to a workshop, for physicians who wanted to learn how to write. And, ideas just started exploding. And I was writing murder mysteries, medical thrillers. I was writing vampire stories. I was writing high fantasy. I got back into science fiction. I rewrote Eminent Domain as Dragon's Heir. Outland Entertainment picked it up and thought it was pretty good. And they said, if you are you interested in rewriting this or republishing this, we'd like to do that. I got a nice advance on it and rewrote it. And as I said, it's actually been doing pretty well. In pre-release, we sold out, I guess 20 or more books in just a couple of days for our book launch. I got another 20 books; those sold out, and we started taking orders after that. So it's done well. I'm here at a International Thriller Writers Convention, and they ordered the books for here, and I'll see how those sales go. Now I've already had 2 people, look me up and told me that they're buying the books and want me to autograph it. So I mean, this isn't even that genre, and it's looking pretty good.
Well, I'm glad to say I've had a chance to read Dragon's Heir, and I thought it was a very fresh, original idea. It was something I'd never seen, something I never thought about before. Because when we always talk about dinosaurs, we talk about them being around for millions and millions of years, and then becoming extinct, and that's the end of it, that kind of thing like that. And you never really think about it beyond that point. So you basically wrote a book, which was an alternate history book about dinosaurs. So I'm not going to get in. I'm going to let you get into detail and tell us what the book is about, and get everybody hyped up about running out and buying thousands of copies of it.
Well, what hit me, back in the early '90s, is we don't look like lions and tigers and bears and mice. We don't have a snout. We have a nose and we have lips, and that evolution occurred over 4 or 5 million years or less. Okay, if you think back to the earliest primate that was called human, Homo, was 3 million years ago. Mm-hmm. That's a flash in time. Yeah. The dinosaurs existed for over 200 million years before the KT event caused the Great Extinction. What's to say that people didn't evolve alongside those dinosaurs, those dumb dinosaurs that we think of? And what if those people were very advanced? And what if those people looked like you and me? All right. And that was the basis of Dragon's Heir. Whenever we talk about alien invasions and alien species, they always look like, Robert Redford and Paul Newman and, Elizabeth Taylor and such, with pointed ears or green skin or purple hair or whatever. All right, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But what happens when those people look like Denzel Washington and Sidney Poitier and Delroy Lindo and Mike Coulter? Okay, what happens when those are the people, with the ships that are invulnerable and the invincible armor and weapons of mass destruction, and it's a matter of choice whether they use them or not? What happens when you have that? Well, what happens is people get uncomfortable. It's like, well, I don't know how we can market this. It says, well, if they look different, I bet you can market it. So that's been my challenge. Dragon's Heir is just chock full of African and African American references, and they're subtle. You're going to recognize them. If you see that the main character is Vitna of Kemeth, that's going to hit you.
Yeah.
If you see that the other main character, Tur, is a Sawari, you're going to put together the Soa people, SOA, and the Chiwari, the great warriors of West Africa. You're going to put that together. Yeah. When they start talking about ancient Maputo, you're going to say, wait a minute, that's Southeast Africa. You're going to get all these references, and thinking about the dragons that stayed behind to carry on that culture, and maybe have a hand in our own evolution. A lot of these things, sort of make you think. It's okay, first of all, these people were here before us. They looked like us, or we've evolved to look like them. Why do we look like them? Was this genetic engineering? And it's this whole thing about ancient aliens and ancient astronauts. You can't turn on the History Channel without hearing about some discovery in the third world. It had to be ancient aliens, and obviously they were talking about people coming from elsewhere and intermixing with humans and giving them technology. They couldn't have come up with a way of doing this that we can't do now. And I challenge that. What if these are things that evolved here on Earth, and the people who evolved them looked a lot like us, and the second time around after the extinction and evolution, that we look like this again.
So you basically challenge them with the truth in a way.
There you go. There you go.
So if somebody was to ask, what is Dragonairs about? What would you tell? What would be your pitch for Dragons?
So Dragon's Heir is not an invasion story. It's a homecoming. These are people who, like us, may not have always been as responsible with nature and their Earth as they should have been. And the event that led to the extinction was not an accident, not just a natural accident. It was an industrial accident. All right, it was something that they themselves caused. They had the technology to evacuate, something that we could not do if that were to happen again to us today, even today. They had enough room to take all the intelligent people, but they left the vermin behind. That, and those vermin who did survive evolved to be us. And we look like them. So what they face is a cosmic plague, a pandemic that taints all the algae in their realms. 10,000 worlds, trillions of people, all at risk because the algae, the base of the food chain, is infected. So they can't find an uninfected source anywhere. So they have to retrace their steps 65 million years back to Earth. Wow. They expect to find a barren world, and they want fossilized algae to reproduce. But when they get here, they find this green world, teeming with life, and a new civilization with mammals that look like them. How did this happen? Now, they knew they left one species of dinosaur behind when they left. One species would not leave. They wanted to restore Mother Earth, or what they called Fitu at the time. All right, and that species were the dragons. All right, there were very few. They were starving. They weren't expected to live. Everybody thought they were crazy. Then they come back, and there's all these human beings with architecture looks like their architecture, technology looks like their primitive technology, and they look like them. We look like them.
Yeah, and that's a very unique storyline. Like I said, I never heard anybody, talk about dinosaurs in that way, and the fact that the dinosaurs have become space travelers basically, and come back to Earth to find that we're there, and that kind of stuff like that. And the book does a lot, talks a lot about some of the political things that are going on between the dinosaurs, the different types of dinosaurs, or what I don't know what you call them, dinosaurs at this point. You call them
well, it's interesting. They don't think of themselves as dinosaurs. They don't see any resemblance between them and dinosaurs any more than you and I would think that bears or tigers or chimpanzees look like us.
Yeah. So they're having their own political things going on, and then they're coming back to Earth, and they have to deal with these intelligent mammals now, and how do they get what they want, and they have to deal with them at the same time. I mean, it's really an intriguing premise, and we're not going to talk too much about it because we want people to go out and buy this book and want them to enjoy it. But looking at what you've done with this book, and looking at how I would say the environment of science fiction and fantasy has changed since you first started publishing. I know it changed a lot from when I first came in 2008. So I know it had to change a lot when you first came in. And one of the things that is happening now, that is, I say the phenomena that's happening now that was sparked by Black Panther, is Afrofuturism. it was something that was taken from a very very narrow definition, which is now has expanded to basically to represent all of what we would call Black speculative fiction, all the different types of genres and stuff.
Right.
How do you see that Dragon Heir? How do you think Dragon's Heir fits into this new concept or this evolving concept of Afrofuturism?
Well, Dragon's Heir, I think, varies a little bit off that track. Again, there are certain things that are almost becoming stereotypical for Afrofuturism when it comes to the visual arts, graphic novels and animated streaming and that kind of stuff. As far as in literature, when we talk about Afrofuturism, very often it's based in African traditions. And again, I'm big on African traditions, but the limitation to ancient African traditions in the modern world, I think that takes a little bit away from all of us on the continent and in the New World, because I think that uninterrupted African civilization would have been miles ahead of where we are now. I think that when you start looking back at some of the ancient civilizations, when you start looking at Nubia, Kush, Kemet, as it was called at the time, Egypt, when you talk about great Maputo, when you start talking about Timbuktu and the West African Empire, and even the Central African empires, there were so many opportunities to advance. There's so many medical and scientific discoveries that have been diminished or denied or co-opted. We talk about all these vaccines. Vaccines are an ancient African technology. We were protecting ourselves from smallpox in the 1600s, 1500s, in ways that Europe didn't widely know until the beginning of the 1800s. And that's actually in very accessible sources. Cotton Mathers, who presided over the Salem witch trials, documented that West African slaves had these little scars on their left arms where they'd been inoculated for smallpox, and the slaves were not dying like the colonists were, the white colonists were.
Yeah, and that kind of goes along with a lot of things I think about as well, is that how much technology and how much development was interrupted and truncated by the interactions with Europeans. And
let's go ahead and call it what it is.
Yeah,
and stolen.
Yeah,
now, you have to remember that as a slave, you weren't just an indentured servant. You were owned. You were property. Anything you came up with was the property of the owner, the master.
Exactly.
So there's no way of knowing what kinds of things that were developed during those years were actually the brain children of slaves.
Yeah,
okay, you have Eli Whitney and the cotton gin. Did he really develop that, or did somebody out in the fields under that heat figure out a better way of doing this?
Yeah,
and show that
we just found out a few years ago that which is not as it's not I wouldn't say it was on the level of technological advances, but we found out that it was a Black man who came up with the process to develop Jack Daniel's whiskey.
Yeah.
We just found that recently, and so it's exactly like you're saying. These are people who were probably creating and developing things, and their intellectual knowledge was being co-opted, being taken from them, like that. That's exactly it. So, drifting back to Dragon's Heir, what else you get from Dragon's Heir? Is there a sequel that you're working on right now, or is there something?
There's going to be a sequel, and following that, there's going to be a prequel. It's going to be in that order. So Dragon's Heir is actually the middle book. Okay. And because of the way the story goes, it needed to be that way. We needed to see something grounded in the familiar. We needed to see the diversity of the Ifalu. That's what these people are called. 400 different intelligent species with subspecies below that could all get along. But at the same time, still highly biased against mammals, even though the mammals looked very much like them. They could not abide mammals resembling them, and they had to not dehumanize but de-Ifalu-ize mammals, because by their law, and this goes in the book, by their law, if a species originates on Earth and naturally evolves to the level of enlightenment, they must be invited to join the Ifalu realm. And they weren't having that for mammals. So they tried everything they could to prove that we were engineered toys and have no rights.
So if a gecko evolved into
right, yeah, if a gecko evolved into that, that'd be okay. But a mammal, that's a problem. And then we get into casual genocide. Since they're only toys, okay, they have no rights. There's no sin in eliminating all of them, and they had the power to do that.
Okay, that's very interesting right there. That really is. So, where would people find Glenn Parris's book? How do people get in contact with you, and how do they find out where your books are and stuff like that?
Well, very easy to find. My website is glennparris.com. And I'm being told that I'm going to start I'm going to start a blog on that and a newsletter. They said, well, Milton does it. So, I got to follow your example. But
it's not always a good thing.
It is a good thing. But you can also find it on Amazon. Barnes and Nobles will order it for you if you want to go there. Same with Books A Million. Outland Entertainment is my publisher, and they can certainly ship books, and are very pleased to do that. And I'm hoping that people will enjoy the glossary at the back, because it helps with a lot of the terminology that I had to invent for this story, for the book. And again, a lot of this is grounded in science. And you're a scientist, you're a geologist and a metallurgist. There are a lot of things in here that you're going to recognize. Even outside your own field, I've been awed at the amount of research that you do to come up with some of the fiction that you write. I love solid, hard science fiction, and that's what I put into this book. Where they look at faster than light travel, they look at the advancement of the theories of relativity, they look at terraforming, they look at biomanipulation, genetic manipulation of different organisms, and nanosynthetic devices. So there are a lot of things that they do very casually, but again, they're over 65 million years ahead of us.
Yeah.
So you have to expect that there are going to be some things that make you scratch your head and make you say, huh.
That brings me back around to a question. The fact that you are a doctor,
Yeah.
How do you see yourself incorporating a lot of your practical knowledge and experience into the stories that you write?
Yeah, virtually all of the stories that I write have some kernel of medicine in them. Dragon's Air is rich with it. In terms of their medicine, their manipulation of livestock, the manipulation of their worlds, terraforming and worldscaping, sort of like landscaping, but worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
The technology that they use to travel faster than the speed of light, develop weapons, develop energy storage and transport technology. I put a lot of effort into looking into the physics, the astrophysics, the astronomy, the biology, which is my field. And as a rheumatologist, I'm also an immunologist. When you start talking about infection and vectors and those kinds of things. I brought a lot of that experience and knowledge to bear.
I got another question about it. You started off as an indie publisher and author, but like a lot of us these days, we find ourselves moving into what we call the hybrid sphere, where we're working with publishers and we're also working on our own. For example, what you're doing with Outland Press, publishing through them. There's another book that came out a couple of years ago that you also took a part in as well, and had a lot to do with myself being a part of it as well. It's a book about this character named Black Panther. I think you might have.
Oh yeah, that yeah. We got into that one, and I'm very proud of the Atlanta contingent on that. Kyoko M and you contributing those terrific stories that people still talk about. It was designed to be a bunch of celebrity writers that would have gotten ghostwriters to write. And thank God, Dr. Jesse Hollins, recognized that there's a lot of local talent, and he asked me. He said, do you know any other writers outside of my sphere? I said, well, number one, Milton Davis has been burning it up for 10, 15 years. You got to talk to him. And Kyoko M has done some incredible things. She'd already written like 9 books by the time we started talking about doing this anthology.
Mhm.
I'm the newcomer, with just a couple of books. Y'all are all over me. So we gave our contributions. I did The Underside of Darkness, which was about Wakanda's first brush with Atlantis, which coincidentally is what the next movie is about. And it's completely separate from what I wrote.
Yeah.
I think that they clearly had that in mind before I wrote the story, but I think I accidentally stumbled onto a theme that they had already started developing.
Okay, that's great, man. I had a chance to read the book myself, and I'm really happy with your story and the other stories that I've read in there. It's like you say, it's a great book, and I'm also glad at the fact that I finally was able to get a story from you into one of my anthologies, which is Terminus 2. Again, a very unique story, a very unique turn on the vampires. I thought it was very entertaining, and the way you were handling it and stuff like that. So I don't want to give away too much, because I actually want people to pick up this book and read it. now they know who you are and what you've done and some of the stories that you've written. They will continue to follow your path to Terminus 2 as well. It's a great contribution to it. Like I said, a collection of local authors who, this is our second anthology doing it, and I think I'm glad to have you aboard and tell a story in that as well. So
well, I'll be there as long as you want me.
Don't say that, because you don't realize how long it's been.
I got the easy job now. All I have to do is write. Man, 25 years ago, I tried to do what you did, and boy, it beat the heck out of me. I honestly don't know how you do what you do. I wrote one story and I started recruiting for others. I tried to put together an anthology, and man, chasing authors and trying to get them to send stuff in. I don't know how you do it.
It's interesting. I just say like that. But it's great when it works out, because you get great books. You get a chance to expose people to an audience and give new authors, up and coming authors, opportunity to get their works in front of stuff and going to do good things. So right now, you say you are at a convention in New York.
Yeah, I'm at the International Thriller Writers Convention here in New York City. Walter Mosley often comes here. He's not here this year, but S.A. Cosby is, the author of Blacktop Wasteland and Razorblade Tears, New York Times best-selling author. And I actually get to announce the winner of the best short story for the year. And my friend Sean Cosby is one of the participants. I know the other authors. They are fantastic authors, but Sean has been burning it up, and I don't know. What he wrote, man.
I took Black Top Wasteland with me last year when I went on vacation, and I read it while I was on vacation. It's an excellent book. I'm
You
glad
can't
that
put it down. You
yeah,
can't put it down.
yeah, you can. I mean, it's a, it's just the whole voice of it and the tone of it and how he told the story. And I'm happy to say that we actually had a chance to publish S.A. Cosby in the
Yeah.
Pizza Funk anthology. He had a story called "A Girl with the Iron Heart," which was a really unique story. One of the, well, all the stories was great. I hate to try to give a preference, but again, he had a great story in that anthology as well. So, it's really nice to see him where he is now, and to see him, doing well in that particular field. So if anybody wanted to find you this year, like at any other events or conventions, what do you have planned for your calendar the rest of this year?
Wow, this is a really, really busy year for me. It's a busy year. My medical practice is booming right now. We just got a new office. We're expanding that. So I'm doing a lot of things there. But my writing career is exploding right now. So I was in Kansas City for Planet Comic Con. I do frequent panels on ContinualCon. I'm here in New York City for Thriller Fest, which is the International Thriller Writers Convention. I'll be not only presenting the award, but I'll be moderating a panel while here. I'll be in Missouri for Tremendicon in June. I'll be in New Orleans for Essence. I've got 2 book signings there. I've got 2 book signings here in Atlanta, one at Liberty Books and one at Dragon and Phoenix Books. I'm going to Alabama at the end of July for another convention. There's Dragon Con Labor Day weekend. I'll be in Minneapolis for BoucherCon in September, which is the Mystery Writers Convention. I'll be in Baltimore for Creatures, Crimes, and Creativity. You should go to that sometime. And that's going to be in early October. I'm going to be in Multiverse Con. I think I'm going to be on a couple of panels there. I'm going to be on Georgia Writers in late October. And I'm going to be in New Orleans again for World Fantasy Convention there. And I think that's the last convention I have for the year, I hope.
I'm just tired listening to that list. I'm exhausted already.
But we'll be updating that schedule on my website. But you can find me in those places.
And what is your website for anybody that wants to follow and keep up with you? Where would they go to find?
Sure. Our website is glennparris.com. So that's Glenn with 2 N's, Parris with 2 R's, because I am double trouble. .com.
That's great. Well, Glenn, thank you very much for spending some time with us and allowing us to pick your brain a little bit and add you to our pantheon of authors with 11 questions. I hope everybody enjoyed the interview. The interview will be available on our playlist at MV Media, our YouTube channel. And so I hope you'll go there and check out Glenn and check out some of the other authors that we've interviewed as well. So hope you guys have a good time and take care, and we'll see you again soon. Peace.
All right, Milton. Thank you. Anytime. This is great.